Alright, so today we got a 425 in here. Customer just dropped it off. Said that there's a bunch of hydraulic fluid flowing from underneath the machine, real close to where the track drive motors are. And you can't see it, but right underneath right under this area, there's just a bunch of hydraulic fluid that's just dripping down, and I got to find the source of it. Being a hose behind it that feeds one of these track motors or the track motor itself. So what I'm going to do is remove the back plate and side panels. This one has one of the Toro platforms, so I'm going to remove that too. And the step is you're going to take this and this bolt off, this and this bolt off, and there's two on the other side, and that's going to remove this platform right here. That's going to be out of the way. And these counterweights right here, there's a bolt here and a bolt down here on these counterweights, two bolts. Take those out, remove the counterweight. Counterweight on the exact other side, take it off the same way. Going to remove the battery, which on the 425 sits right there. You got the two positive and negative connections at the top, and this kind of hold down that's halfway off. I'm going to remove all that and pull the battery out of the machine. On this side panel right here, I'm going to remove, it's got 3 bolts, I believe, that'll hold it. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to remove this panel up out of the way, and that's going to be give me the ability to remove this fuel tank right here on the second step. Got the battery and everything out of the way, so the last thing to do to expose the gas tank is take this back plate off right here. To do that, there's 2 bolts that I've already taken out there, one there, one there. Take the 2 bolts over here that I haven't removed, one there, one there. Take the 2 bolts out of the battery tray, one there, one there. You don't have to take these off. And then just remove the battery tray with the back access panel. Just move it all to expose what's behind it, which is going to be the gas tank. But you might have 2 bolts that sit up underneath here, underneath your machine. They all come standard with it, but people have been in here before and they never put it back, so you'll have to check yours to see if you got it in there. We now have the fuel tank exposed. Right here is your fuel supply, so you're going to separate, you can take this band off and then separate this hose from this 90 right here, and try not to get any dirt or anything in that supply. Over here, you got 2 wires that come up on your fuel sensor. You're going to separate both of these just by pulling them off the little clamp that they're on. And remember, when you put them back, red's middle and black is outside. You're going to pull and then pull the fuel tank totally out of your machine, and you're going to have nothing behind here. You're going to have nothing but filth and dirt and junk built up, so you're going to have to take time to clean all that stuff out so you can actually see your hydraulic motors behind them. We got everything out of the way, cleaned up back here. It was gross. And exposed the hydraulic motor, inspected the hoses going to it there and there for this hydraulic motor. Checked the O-rings in here. Didn't actually check them, but made sure that there was no drips coming off it. And noticed that it looks like there's a crack in the back of this hydraulic motor, and it's also leaking out the front nose where the shaft comes out. So I'm going to remove this hydraulic motor and more than likely install a new one, due to it's going to be a lot of work to get this one back together and repacked. So to remove this hydraulic motor, I'm going to label the hoses top and bottom, and I believe it's 1 1/8 and 1/8 wrench, and I'm going to remove both of those hydraulic hoses that go to that hydraulic motor. And behind them are going to be 2 nipples that are 1 1/16", and I'm going to use a 5-point ratchet head to remove those, so I don't strip them out, because those are really hard to get off. So I'm going to remove those 2 hoses, remove the 2 nipples, and then come over here and we'll remove this track. It's a wide track, so moving a narrow track is a little bit different, but I'm going to remove this wide track. What I'm going to do first is come over here, and there's a 7/16 bolt and nut. I'm going to loosen or remove that, take that nut off, and remove the nut and bolt. Then I'm going to take a ratchet head, half-inch ratchet head, and since I'm going to be loosening this track, I'm going to put the ratchet head in the tightening position. Stick it back here in this feeder hole right here till it sits in. I'm going to start cranking down. What you're going to notice is this black part, this tensioner arm and this spring are going to start to slowly creep back this way to allow the track to come off easier. There's a big nut that goes on this big bolt right here, and as soon as that nut, as you're tightening it down, that nut's going to expose itself. As soon as it gets to about right here, then you're loose enough. And then come over here to this outside tension wheel, this one right here, and remove this nut right here, remove that washer, and then pull this tensioner wheel off. And then take your track, and your track will come off fairly easy, and take it off this way. And then remove it from your hamster wheel right there, and then just get the track out of the way. So the track is off. The track is off right now, and I'm going to brace it with the bar. And see that nut right there that holds the big hamster wheel onto your hydraulic motor. I'm going to go ahead and take that totally off. And then even behind that are 4 bolts that hold the hydraulic motor. You see back there, there's 1, 2, it's little 3/4, or I think they're 3/4 inch bolts. And they hold the hydraulic motor, there's 4 of them, hold the hydraulic motor onto a retaining plate on the back. And I'm going to go ahead and take all 4 of those bolts off. Take all 4 of those bolts off, and that bolt, if you look right over there on the side above that hydraulic motor, there's a little plate right there, and those bolts hold that plate. So I'm going to remove this plate. This particular model just has 1 plate on the top. Most of these models have a plate going side here and a plate on the other side going the opposite way, which is kind of hard to get to. But remember, when you take these plates off, that they have to go back in the exact way they came off. So there is, if yours are on the side, there is an up and down on it. There is no arrow. You just have to mark it or something, so you put it back when you put the new motor in, or you repack your old motor and put it back in. They have to go back the same way. So if not, they'll be close and they won't line up with the holes, and it's just terrible. So get those plates out of there. You move the 4 bolts, and then see these ports right here? What I'm going to do is I'm going to spin the ports to the upright position, and I'm going to spin the whole hydraulic motor is going to spin, so those ports are pointed straight up. And then I'm going to remove the bracing. I'm going to take that brace out, and I'm going to pull the wheel and the entire hydraulic motor attached to it all the way out. But those ports needed to be pointed in the upward position, because that's the only way that hydraulic motor will come out. Okay, we separated the hydraulic motor from the wheel. We use a big press to get it off. Where's the press at? That's what it looks like. You can get it off with heat and hammering it off. Just take care of when you're hammering it off. If you want to reuse that shaft, or you want to use that hydraulic motor, it's real easy to bend up those grooves on that shaft that holds the nut. So just be careful. So remove that, and I'm going to put a new hydraulic motor in there. This one right here. So it comes with these things installed on them. So take those off, put that piece of tape on, and I do that so when I slide it in the Dingo housing, it doesn't, any dirt that might fall doesn't get into the ports, because that's the last thing you want is a new hydraulic motor with dirt in it. So I'm going to slide this hydraulic motor with the ports up back in, right there, slide it all the way in, turn it 90 degrees so the ports are pointing towards the back of the machine, and then put your black plates back on the way you got them, and then the 4 bolts that go through the hydraulic motor that hold the plates on, and tighten those down. And then I'm going to rehook up the hydraulic hose nipples onto the back of the hydraulic motor after it's installed, and then hook up my hydraulic lines back to the hydraulic motor. Okay, so the new hydraulic motor's in, and it's bolted down to the back brackets, and I hooked up the 2 nipples, hydraulic nipples, and then there's 2 lines that I hooked up. You're gonna have to hook up the bottom line first before you hook up the top. You just can't hook the top up first and do the bottom. There's just not enough room to tighten down the hose. I'm not even putting anything on the hydraulic motor yet, so I'm gonna keep it open. So I have that. machine here too. Okay, so I have that, and what I'm going to do is check the hydraulic fluid and fill up my hydraulic fluid to the proper level, and I'm going to hook up my fuel tank and then hook up my battery before I do anything over to the put any of the track system on. And after the fuel tank is properly hooked up and the battery is properly hooked up, I'm going to start my machine up here. I'm going to start it, make sure both your tracks are up off the grounds. Then I'm going to go forward, I'm going to go back, I'm going to go forward, and I'm going to watch this hydraulic motor over here. I'm going to wait for it to spin consistently. You're going to have to go back and forth a bunch of times. And once it spins consistently, that means it's filled up with hydraulic fluid. Because the last thing you want to do is try to drive your track system with an empty hydraulic motor. It's just no good for anything. So the purpose of what I'm doing is filling this hydraulic motor up with hydraulic fluid before I put any kind of resistance on it. So I got that, and that's what I'm going to do. So I started, hooked everything up hydraulic motor wise, started the machine and filled the hydraulic motor up with fluid. It totally spins as I engage the drive handle, so we're good to go there. So next thing is I'm going to install this hamster wheel, aka drive wheel, back onto this new hub, and we're going to check the drive wheel here. We're going to look for this Woodruff key hole right here and make sure it's not worn out. This one's in good shape. So what I'm going to do is just make sure to clean everything in this hole to make sure it's completely clean, no oils or anything like that. Same thing for that shaft. Even though it's a new hydraulic motor, I want to clean it to make sure that there's absolutely no oils on it. After I make sure that they're both clean, I'm going to slide the wheel on that shaft, and I'm going to make sure I don't accidentally knock out that Woodruff key. It's real easy to knock out the back and you don't know, and then you're going to be in big problems when you start driving this machine around. Do that, and then I'm going to brace this hamster wheel. I'm going to stick the bar through it so it doesn't move. I'm going to put a new nut that's going to hold the hamster wheel on that hydraulic motor, and this unit I'm going to tighten down to 300 foot-pounds of torque. One thing I did forget to mention is you're always supposed to use a new nut because of patch lock nuts. When you put on a new hydraulic, when you put on a new nut on for your hydraulic motor. But if you do decide to use your existing nut, the best alternative that you can do, which is not recommended, but better than nothing, is just use Loctite on the old nut when you install it. Yeah, it looks like my guy jumped ahead of me and put everything back together. So to put this wide track's already on, but to put your wide track on, of course this tensioner wheel right here is not going to be there, it's going to be off. So put your track on back here on your hamster wheel first, and then slide it over. Actually, before you do that, you want to check and make sure everything's in good condition. So you want to take both of these wheels and put them on and spin it and make sure both of those bearings are good. Check all 5 of these road wheels, bogey wheels, spin them, make sure everything's good. Take your tensioner arm, which is this thing right here, take it out of your machine, dump it. Your spring should be all in one piece. Not replace your spring. Your tensioner arms look something like this. If it's broken, go ahead and replace it too. So put it all back together, put your spring back in here, put your spring back right there, put your nut and your tensioner back in here, slide it all back in, and then take your track and start it back here, push it on, push it over that one front wheel that's going to be on, and push the lug so it's snug up against the wheel. Put your other wheel on here, put it on. There's a washer that goes on the inside of this. Put the wheel on, there's a washer here, and then lock it down. And what you're going to do is, I have this piece out. You're going to put your ratchet, in here, which is actually in this point right here, and start cranking down. And this whole black tension arm is going to be pushing out. And to know when to stop, you want the measurement of 2 3/4. And basically that's from the edge right here of this nut to the edge of the black tension arm right here. And that number should be 2 3/4. So of course it's not easy to do. So what I do is I take a zip tie and I put a zip tie in there until it hits this right here. And then I mark it off with my thumb like this, right here at the black edge, pull it out, and your zip tie, pull a tape measure on it, so it would be 2 3/4. So that's how you do it, and then you drop your machine back on the ground and you're ready to go.